Welcome to Sales Training for Podcasters, the podcast designed to better your sales process. We'll be sharing tools, tips, and techniques, whether you love sales or hate sales. If you've got a product or service to sell and a podcast, you've come to the right place. Now, here's your hosts, podcast strategists, Doug Sandler and JJ Flizanes.
Hey, welcome back. My name is Doug Sandler.
I'm JJ Flizanes.
And this is Sales Training for Podcasters. We are so excited to have you here today in yet another episode that JJ and I are going to bring you some of our expertise when it comes to actually, what are we talking about today, JJ?
We're talking about the feeling of obligation with guests.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh. I have to tell you, over 800 plus guests on my show, the Nice Guys on Business podcast, plus another couple hundred on all the other shows that I've had. There are a lot of things that guests come to the table expecting, and just got to remember who's in charge here. Who is in charge here?
Well, you should be if it's your show. And the point of today's show, because it may sound like, well, how does this have to do with my sales? And I'm going to connect those dots for you very quickly up front here at the beginning of today's episode. It was initially an idea that I had because it's actually happening to me right now. It's happened a couple times before, but it's happening again. And each time it happens, there's a new level of awareness and actions that I take to learn something new or expand into something different or make new boundaries. Because I've learned through the years that a lot of podcasters who start their show, there's like three different categories. Like you're a person who starts a show because you think, oh, that'll be fun. I like to talk. I like to talk to people and I have things to promote and they can promote and let's just start a podcast. Mm-hmm. And then there's the next person that says, I need to make money from the show. What's the best way to do that? I'll do whatever that takes. Here's my business plan. Here are the products I have. Here's who I need to talk to. And then there are people who start a podcast because they actually have something to teach and they want to teach what they want to teach. And whether they need guests or not, it's a different story. And that was me. And I think that that's been very successful for me for a couple of different reasons. But let's address, Doug, which one of those are you?
I would say I like to talk, but it was about making money for me. And I wasn't really 100% sure exactly what my path to profit was for podcasting, but I knew that I had an okay ability to have a conversation with people. I wasn't 100% sure that I had an expertise that I could bring to people and share in monologue. So I wanted to go right for that interview. And then something happened along the way where I kind of got lost in the idea of promoting someone else. And I got lost in the process, meaning I didn't have a specific product or service that I was trying to share with my community. So I was sharing by default the message of my guests, and those people became the ones that, as you said in the beginning, hey, who had control? I had control of the show, but it didn't have control of each in particular slice of episode to share my message with the community.
Now, there's no right or wrong way to do any of this. There's whatever way is the best for you based on what your goals are and why you're starting your show in the first place or why you even have a show. And for me, what I noticed pretty early on, I didn't need guests because I had specific content that I wanted to talk about. And I did have guests, by the way, when I first started my show. I had many guests, but I had some guests on multiple times because they were an expert in many different areas. Or let's say, for instance, Jeannie Peters, who is an expert in nutrition and anti-aging medicine and bioidentical hormones. And a lot of other things too. She does flower essences. Anyway, there were so many subjects to bring her on to talk about. And I have a 20-year relationship with her. And she really is the epitome to me of all things good when it comes to alternative medicine and nutrition. And so why do I need to go find a new person every time I want to talk about something? Why not just bring on Jeannie? And it's because it's my relationship with her. So over the years, what I noticed as I would be inspired to talk about something new, or I'd meet somebody that I want to bring on, or I reached out to an author that I knew or inspired me, and I'd get a yes. I'm that person who I have a lot of my own content to share. I have a direction for my show. And so that means I don't need guests, I don't need to fill every other show with an interview. And the question is, why are you doing that anyway? We work with a lot of podcasters in our mastermind group, in our Ultimate Podcast Mastermind. And we, of course, we've been around podcasters for as long as we've been podcasting. And so that we see and we hear some of the struggles that people have with the ideology about how to do this, and how this directly affects your sales. First and foremost is that, in the podcasting world, and is outside of the world too, but it's the first time I heard it as often as we hear it, but the know, like, and trust factor, right?
Well,
That's like the foundation for a sale, right?
Yeah, I mean, and just to take that down the similar path, but just extend it a little bit further, there's a direct connection between you providing evidence to your community that you're an expert at something, and connecting that to the sale that is going to be made from your show. If you want to move any services through your podcast, you've got to teach your audience that you know what the hell you're doing. And by you knowing what you're doing, meaning being a great interviewer doesn't necessarily prove that. You being a great interviewer is just one of the many components of having a successful show. You actually having some level of expertise at something is key for you to build that trust factor with your audience. And the best way to do that are through the episodes that you're going to be able to share your expertise on your own, or coach somebody through a particular situation, or go toe to toe with another expert that does what you also do on your show, and sharing your expertise together.
So what really got us to record today's show was what had happened is in my space, and what I'm going to call my space is law of attraction, astrology, spirituality, manifestation. There are several people in that space also. And there was someone who reached out to me, a very dear friend, to make a referral. And he wanted to refer me somebody else in the space. And here's where I wanted to speak to this. For those of you that are seasoned podcasters, I don't know how you handle you and your show. I think that when you determine that you will take anybody, I don't know how that works in terms of your audience. I don't know how an audience responds to a host that just interviews anyone about anything. All I can speak of is my audience. Over the 6 years I've been doing my show, the momentum has been created and the stage has been set, that I have positioned myself, not psychologically like predetermining this. I didn't go in thinking I'm going to position myself as an expert. No, I just had shit that I wanted to share. I had stuff I wanted to teach. I had lessons I wanted to share with people that were working for me. And by default, not to mention I'm studied in all the areas that I'm talking about, and I keep learning, and I want to share what I'm learning. So by default, I have also become the expert in many ways and in many things to my audience. So what I know for sure is that especially the ones who've been with me for a while, and maybe even some of the ones who haven't. I had one person after two episodes with me join my high-level mastermind program. Two episodes. Now, so I've established myself, and what that equals is sales for me. I get to sell things at live events, coaching sessions, mastermind programs, courses. I sell easily because I've established an authority or a know, like, and trust factor with my audience, because every episode is full of things that interest me, that I know something about, and that engages me at a level that is not only passionate and interesting to me, but energetically transfers to my audience. And so I know this. So as a listener, when I go to listen to content on someone else's show, which isn't that often, but I do it, I'll just go for that one episode. But I'm not necessarily drawn in to listen to every episode. I'm not necessarily feeling a distinct connection with the host if they're not positioning themselves or sharing about themselves. So I think that this whole idea of having guest interviews on your show can really be an important conversation to have when it comes to your sales.
I think the only thing that I would, yes, I do believe that it's a valuable component to have people that come on your show sharing their expertise with your community. Absolutely will help you get aligned more closely to the subject matter that the guest is talking about. Totally cool. Your audience will connect with you that way to a degree. And that is just one avenue that you can go down. I use this guest to client strategy, and I'm sure we'll talk about that, ad infinitum down the road on some other episodes. We have a joint venture partnership way to monetize the show. We have affiliate relationships as another way to monetize the show. You're talking about the tried and true relationship building strategy that you will use, not only relationship building with your community, relationship building with your guest as well. And I think it's probably the most solid way, as you call it, to create your own economy. If you're interested in creating an environment where your audience comes back to you over and over and over again because they know you, they like you, and they trust you based upon your level of expertise and the way that you connect and engage with them, it's totally the most solid way to go. Not the fastest way to get to money, but certainly a very solid approach to building trust among your community.
Well, I had one person after 2 episodes, join a 5-figure, mastermind program. So it's not that it can't happen quickly. You can use other methods, but here's the point of today's show. So the issue was that this very trusted friend connected me with someone in my space, and while he didn't say it outright, I have a feeling, and I think that the reason that he made the connection was because he wants me to have her on the show. Mm-hmm. He didn't ask me to have her on the show. He thinks I'll just want to have her. And it's almost assumed because she has a bigger audience than I do. She's more well-known than I am. So it's almost assumed, why wouldn't you have her on the show? Now, again, he didn't say any of this. I am totally filling in the blanks. All right.
Well, right. But I also think that people make the connection because let's say that somebody that is a friend of yours and they are a podcaster and they have a guest on the show and they want to make a connection between them and the guest. They're going to make the introduction, not assuming that person's going to be accepted by you as a guest on the show, but hey, I want to let you know I'm giving the seal of approval to this guest. You would love to have this, because they don't really study your strategy. They have no idea what your strategy is. You could say, hey, I actually I don't need any guests. I don't have any guests. And that's not going to necessarily do a lot for your relationship with that person that's making the referral. But at the same time, it will let them know what your strategy is. So the question is, do you go back to that person and say, hey, I just want to give you an idea of what my strategy is? Yeah, I very rarely have on guests, and any guests that I do have on, like JJ, I mean, I look at your guest list. What percentage of your guests would you say that you have on as a result of somebody referring them to you versus the percentage of guests that you have on that you've actually gone out and looked for because they would fit exactly the mold of who you're looking to put in that guest seat?
Oh, it's very, very, very small. And in fact, I'm thinking of someone I had on 2 years ago, referred by one of our podcaster friends. And she's a well-known name, and I could have done without it. Like, it did nothing for me. Right, it did nothing for me. She was, I'm not even going to go down that path. Anyway, it did nothing for me. She came on my show knowing that she was a big name, and she did nothing for my show. She didn't promote it. She doesn't give a shit. Right. And so I had no energy around it. And in fact, on the show, we had a little bit of a disagreement on something. And I know my audience caught it because I heard her going into victim mentality, and I wanted to clarify that. And then I pushed her up against a wall, not purposely. I just asked, and she said, look, I'm not a psychologist or a therapist. And I was like, oh, but you're a relationship coach. Anyway, so, at the end of the day, if I didn't learn that lesson, but here we are with this person who is in my lane, who is somebody I've heard about. But when I listened to some things, I heard a show with her once, and it did nothing for me. I didn't feel attracted to her. I didn't feel like I wanted to reach out to her. I didn't feel repelled by her. I felt nothing. And here we are again. I'm getting now a direct referral to her where I'm being connected on email. And again, I do a little research, and there's nothing. I have no impulse of, yes, I'd like to have her on, and so that this struggle that I'm having is something I wanted to share here, because I want to acknowledge that there is, especially for those of you that have a very clear mission and message and teaching, and you are really wanting to get out into the world some of the things that you've been successful at, and you want to share that with others, and you're a little protective of it, not because you're insecure, not because you have an ego, but because, again, like all of us, we only have so many hours in the day, and so many days in the week, and so many weeks in the year, and so many years in our life.
And so many episodes that you have guests on. If you have 52 weeks a year that you have episodes that you have interviews, that's a coveted spot. I mean, it's not like you have an unlimited place to put people on your show. But if you're employing the strategy that JJ puts into her know, like, and trust factor with her community, oftentimes it doesn't involve anyone being recommended to her at all. Certainly you can run across a guest that is on your wish list, and you can get that through referral, and that's great. But just know that it's not just if I'm starting my podcast, let me open up my guest seat to the world. The guest seat is not, and it shouldn't be, even in the beginning. And I struggle. I mean, I share with my clients very early on in the game is that they are not doing you a favor by coming on your show. You are doing them a favor by exposing their message to your community. And until you realize that, the issue that most people have is like, well, I need to find guests. I have to find guests. And once you begin to kind of embrace that I own a media company strategy and have that in your head and that kind of mindset, you do feel like they're doing you a favor by coming on your show. And it just shouldn't be the case. It's not the case. You are doing them the ultimate service by allowing them to share their message with your community, no matter what the size of your community, small or large.
I think what happens as you become a more powerful show, whether that means you have a lot of downloads or you have a lot of attention or a large social media following, or you're just respected in your field, or you have a lot of buzz about your show, like the more your show grows, the more people want to be on it. And for me, the more famous people, so to speak, that I've had on, the easier it is for me to get other famous people. And so then it becomes hey, I want to go, I can be on that show. I want to be on your show. Look at all the people that you've had. So then there becomes this, now people are reaching out to you and you have to decide how to handle that. And so I wanted to speak to that quickly for those of you that are heart-centered, mission-based entrepreneurs and podcasters. I want you to, and again, have a message of your own that you want to convey during the course of a year's time on your show and teachings and lessons that you want to teach. You got to trust your intuition. And I reached out to a couple different people and I asked for their opinions about the energetic differences and similarities to said guest that someone has recommended to me. And, and
you're a glutton for punishment.
Well,
it's funny. You go down this path of, should I have the guest? Should I not have the guest? It's like you do a lot of mental gymnastics when it comes to, it's almost like you should just shut your guest list and just say, hey, sorry, I'm not accepting applications for anybody other than who I'm out, giving an outreach to come on our show.
Well, it's the difference between the logical left brain headspace and the intuitive right brain, messages from the body space. And I had to check in because, again, on one level, she has bigger audience than I do, and a connection to her would be a smart financial decision on my part to be aligned with her and see if I can find a way to have a connection. But, that all is like, but when I look at how my body feels, it's like, it's not, again, I'm not turned off to that person. I just don't feel any connection. So I'd be forcing something which would be out of alignment, which isn't the right course of action. So what I wanted to talk about today is, again, I wanted to share this with you guys because, I have her on? Sure. But when you go against your own intuition, when you do something outside of what you feel is the right thing, forget how you concluded it was the right thing. If you listen to your body, if you see how you react, you see how you feel, and if you have to talk yourself into it, then it's probably not the right thing. And so I've noticed this habit and pattern. Sometimes I'm trying to talk myself into it, but I'm trusting my intuition because then you're worried too, that if you say no, or if you don't offer them a spot, then what? It's like you're rejecting, which I have not had that conversation yet, by the way, when we're going to connect. And so I'm kind of working this out right now as we're talking about it. But why I wanted to talk about it here was because I'm sure I'm not the only person who deals with this. And I also feel pretty strongly that the success of my show is because my people trust me. And so when I bring on someone who, and again, not that I don't think this person would have good information, I just don't want to. I don't feel compelled to do that. I don't feel passionate about it. And so it's like, what energy am I sending out there if I decide to have her? Now, one other little sidebar, how you can work yourself around this and how I might work myself around this is you have another show. One of the reasons I started Health and Wealth was because I had so many different financial expert opportunities to have conversations. And at the time, I wasn't talking about money on my shows. Money was not a part of the mind, body, soul yet. It was just, it was more of alternative medicine and relationships and self-growth and all of that good stuff. But I saw that eventually there would be a need to add money. So I started the Health and Wealth podcast, and now I get to say to certain people, in fact, I have someone else, a friend from my past who had me on her show, and she asked, well, hey, can I be on your show? again, awkward conversation. What am I going to say? No, she just had me on her show. So I said, well, I'm not really taking applications for spirit, purpose, and energy, but I can put you on health and wealth. So that's my like default. So that way I don't come across looking like an asshole that, no, I'm not going to have you on my show, but it protects my audience and it protects me from having, from doing something out of alignment. So I wanted to offer that as a solution to people who are struggling with the same thing. But I also wanted to call attention to your relationship to your audience and how you're cultivating a relationship with them, whether you do guest to client strategy like Doug has done. And Doug has built an audience also, and they are starting to buy from him. Isn't this right? 5 years later.
Yeah. Well, that's
They're
okay.
starting to
It was never my initial it was never my strategy. I never even understood the process of doing what you have done. And, until I started sharing my strategy with a number of podcasters that were either highly experienced podcasters or even some of the new ones, they're like, that guest to client strategy, that's crazy. I mean, that literally means that you could turn a guest into a client without having any episodes air. And that was like the ding, 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 ding. Exactly. This is your fastest path to money if you're okay in the world of selling, because, I mean, it doesn't involve bringing somebody through the know, like, and trust factor. That is in your audience. It just involves you turning your guests into clients.
Which is also a reason I started Health and Wealth, because I wanted to turn some of the financial experts into health clients because most of them needed it. So I thought, well, let me start a new show because that doesn't really fit the model or energy of the other shows. And anyway, so it's a nice little side thing to have. It's not a big deal. Obviously, I'm already having these conversations. And so I would recommend for anybody who is struggling or has struggled with that idea of people wanting to be on your show and you feeling like you can't say no, just start another show. I would want you to, if you have any desire to create your own economy. And yes, I want you to employ the guest to client strategy also that Doug is talking about early on, or find a way to bring in money at the same time, like in the beginning. But over the course of time, like, you really build a momentum that's almost unstoppable. And I want to speak to that because I don't know that anyone is. I don't know that anyone out there is talking about the possibility of what you can do in time with your audience when you treat them like they're your coveted friends and family. Like, you're giving them, like, you really curate your material because you care deeply. And they can feel that because they feel it through the microphone. They feel it through the vibrational frequency waves that are going into their ears. They can feel it in their body and in their heart that you care. And that's what causes this know, like, and trust, which then later, when you recommend a product, whether it be yours or not, when you get more popular and you have more downloads, you have the opportunity to have sponsors. But here's the thing. If you have a lot, like an audience that's big, but they don't buy anything, then you're useless to a sponsor because they want to track sales. So downloads don't matter. Conversion matters. And so I want you to get out of the mindset that you have to have 10,000, 15, 20,000 downloads an episode to start bringing in money because you're going to get sponsors.
Well, let me just add this too. So the person that's out there, or the people that are out there that have those podcasts that have 10,000 downloads per episode, hats off to you. Applause. That's great. If you haven't gotten an advertiser yet, just know this: when you do eventually find someone that is interested in advertising, they're going to want to do a tracking campaign on your audience. They're going to put a link that you're going to send people to do a very brief survey. It might just be a 1 or 2 question survey. And if you have an audience that is large in size, but zero in in conversion and at least taking action, having 10,000 or 20,000 or 100,000 people in your community is not going to matter. They're not going to care. They're not going to give you that. And again, they're going back to those industry standards. 10,000 at $20 per thousand is $200 per episode. If you're doing a weekly episode, $800 per month. It's just not worth that. I'd much rather have a highly engaged audience of 50 than an unengaged audience of 50,000. It's just the reality. And it's kind of like, increase your downloads, or anybody that cares about getting downloads by people just clicking and giving you a download. You don't really understand the reality of what a download means. You want a download to mean a connected, engaged audience member. You don't want it to be a number so that you have a feather in your cap. The Ego analytics there's no value in ego analytics other than to feed your brain into the illusion that you have people listening to your show, which is not going to convert anything into money for you if you're trying to do this for a living.
Agreed. So let go of the number conversation. Look at your responses, look at your audience, and give it time. You're not going to put out 20 episodes and think they love you because they haven't necessarily listened long enough unless you're hitting them right at the right moment. Again, that mastermind client of mine was already about to enroll in someone else's mastermind. She heard me and diverted her course because she thought, I'll get more personal attention from you in a more specific genre that I'm looking for than I will with this other person who, again, is more well-known than I am, but has a much larger base of people who are involved. And so she wasn't going to get a personal one-on-one time like she's going to get with me, which of course will also go away in not too long of time here because I'm on that same trajectory. But I just thought this was a valuable thing to talk about because, I see some of you beginner podcasters scrambling for guests or wanting to do, and that's fine because you're in the beginning. You don't know what you don't know yet. You're just finding your way. But there's not necessarily a strategy there. Like we could have it so that way you could be doing two things at one time. Like you could be having the guest to client strategy while you're building a relationship with your audience. But if you have someone approach you who wants to be on your show, I get approached like Doug does all the time. And I send out sort of a sponsorship response of like, they could pay to be on the show. And if they were to pay and they weren't a right fit, I'd refund them and not have them on the show, or I'd have them on Health and Wealth and find another way to promote them. But if you're someone who, I don't have a hard time saying no, but it's when you get to that level of people who like, ideally you'd be like, oh yeah, I should have that person on my show. They're very popular. They're in the same, we agree on things. We're in the same, line of conversation and belief system, but yet you have to trust your gut. And I think when you do that, your audience trusts you more. And then you, again, build that deeper know, like, and trust, which I think at the end of the day is what is so exciting about podcasting is that I hate to say it, but security of you have touched so many people and been such an influence in their lives for so long that you're the first person on their mind when they're ready to take action and they need help. And that is a beautiful, powerful, just grounding feeling to have that my show has been able to do for me. And it's only because I have literally curated my content so carefully that it has to be meaningful to me and it has to be right, or I just don't do it.
And I've seen you do this a number of times with our clients in our mastermind, is that you actually will help them design this 10 episode story arc, which oftentimes will give you the ability with confidence to be able to say to somebody that applies to be on your show during that period of time, I'm sorry that right now there's not a fit for you because we are doing this, we have this particular season that we're working on, or we have this particular story arc. I will reach out to you when I'm ready to start looking for more guests for the show. Just know that you're not at the whim of your guests. It's the other way around. Your guests have to wait for you. You've got to be in control of what goes on your show. Yet it doesn't mean that you can't pull somebody in that fits something that you have going on in your show. It just means that your show does not need to be a revolving door for guests that have no particular interest other than their self-interest in being a guest on your show.
Something you asked me yesterday on the way up to Ojai that we haven't talked about yet was, what about the people who aren't comfortable having that monologue episode? And I want to address two things. One, you just said, you don't have to have those guests. There's nothing to say you can't have the same guest on. You could have literally like one person who's on once a month. You could have a conversation. You could make it like its own little, brand and within your show. You'd be like Conversations with Doug. And once a month you bring on Doug, and you can even do a Q&A episode where you're putting questions out to your audience and to your email list and to social media, and then you just answer the questions on the show. And that could be another episode that you do that's a solo show, but you're getting input about what people want you to talk about. So if you're someone who is not, that would probably be the way that I would recommend you start if you're not comfortable opening up the mic and just talking. I would not read. Please never read. I know they can't see you, but unless you're an amazing performer who can read a prompt like it's naturally coming out of your mouth on this microphone, they will hear it. And people do not trust those who are reading from a script. It's just, whether it's not a judgment, it's the truth. If I know someone's reading, I don't trust you because I know you carefully crafted that. I don't trust it's coming from an aligned place. So if you're someone who needs a little bit of help, there are ways around that. You can get someone else to interview you on your show and you could write the questions. You could make some bullet points about topics that you want to talk about. Again, the Q&A show's another option. And then bring on a handful of guests that you just rotate through for months and have different conversations with different topics in the same genre. And I think that would be a really fun way to get you used to not having to rely on putting out a guest all the time.
I get a little nervous. I definitely get a little nervous when it comes to doing those monologue episodes, even as many episodes as I've done. I really like the comfort of having somebody sit in that guest seat, and I've been able to weave particular subject matter guest experts in with me every time I've done those episodes. But you're 100% right. I mean, you're going to not only grow your confidence by doing that, but you're going to grow your trust factor of your audience that much faster by doing those monologue episodes where you're simply you and your microphone and sharing your level of expertise with your community.
If you're uncomfortable, I'm not recommending you sit down, open the microphone, and have no notes. Okay. I'm not saying just sit down and go, what am I going to talk about today? Then fumble yourself around until you get to 30 minutes or more. Okay. Write a little bit of a list of where you want to go. Maybe throw in some examples of a story that illustrates the point you want to make, whether it be you or you saw it on the news or somebody that you know. I would use your environment as your contrast to inspire you to teach. I had some clients that I used to work with, and I'm telling you, every session I'd have an episode because there'd be some point that I'd want to teach that I knew they weren't willing to listen to. So I put it on the show. So instead of telling them, because they weren't open to it, they didn't want to hear it, they weren't asking, they weren't looking to change or grow, I would come home and either write a chapter in a book or I would record an episode to teach those of you out there who might care, who might want to take it and run with it and change your lives. So anyway, so those are some tips on how to start creating some solo episodes for yourself. And again, practice is going to be the way to do it. You can also ask for people to come on and have coaching sessions. Like if you're a coach, you can say, hey, I'm giving away free coaching sessions on air. It's a way to build your list. And then you record it and you tell them up front, they sign a waiver, they get a good mic, and you tell them that, this is for content. And then afterwards, it's a kind of the way to do the guest to client strategy and get content for your show and to illustrate how you are as a coach to your audience so that when they are ready, they think of you. So those are just some ideas. But again, the point of today was really to let you know that even though we're seasoned podcasters and I do pretty well and Doug does pretty well, when you get to those higher levels, you still have to be tactful. And I believe in alignment and have integrity around and boundaries around who you have on your show and why. And don't be a sellout. I guess that's the message. Don't be a sellout because I think your audience will trust you less over time. And that's, if you're going to put out a show to have an audience, just do right by them, right? You can still do all the other things in the guest to client strategy and how you're doing everything else. But like, if you're putting it out there, you're by default attracting an audience. So do right by them.
So much to learn, so many different opportunities that you have. When you got into podcasting, you maybe thought it was just you opening up a microphone and sharing some content with a potential audience that will grow organically. And yeah, you probably can grow an audience organically just through people doing searches on Apple Podcasts. But there's work involved, writing a book. I've said this many times to my clients, and I've got the experience behind me to prove it, and JJ does as well. Is that writing a book is 20% writing, 80% marketing. And you've just got to keep that in mind. You're looking to create an environment where people will know you, like you, and trust you. And the best way to do that is understanding it's not just about creating the message, it's getting the message out, getting it into the right hands, getting people attracted to you, and doing your thing. I'm excited. So when you got into podcasting, not just opening up that microphone, there's a bunch of different strategies. Yes, there's some work that's going to be involved in doing this as well. It's not just as easy as turning that microphone on and going. We'll be here with you every step of the way, teaching you the sales techniques and processes to get you there. What do we have coming up in future episodes? Have we what's our story arc, JJ?
Oh, well, we have some great guests coming on to talk about content marketing, to talk about, again, that whole book writing and how to sell from, again, integrity and not put up with anyone's BS and knowing who you are, strategies in selling. So we've got some great content coming down the pipeline for you here in 2021 coming up. If anyone has not already taken advantage of one of our mini courses, we are offering it for the holidays for free. You can go to 5 ways to make money podcasting.com and download our mini course, 5 ways to make money podcasting. Normally $297, but we're offering it for free. And it's just, again, a way to start thinking about the whole monetization thing with your show. And we'd love to have you join us there and then ask any questions that you may have. So we can also record a response for you here on this show.
All right. Well, thanks for being here yet another week. I know I don't have a signature out with this podcast, just like I don't on all the other podcasts I have there, except for Nice Guys. But you don't like the whole idea of just go out and sell something, do you?
No. I don't like it at all. I think it lacks integrity. Go out and sell something. How about go be your best self?
That's a good one too.
I don't know. We'll think about it, and maybe you guys have some comments. It's the all this conversation on the back end of the show. So how about this? Happy New Year, and we'd love to be in touch in some way. Go to 5 ways to make money podcasting.com or salestrainingforpodcasters.com, jjflazanes.com, Doug@DougSandler.com. We'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to know more about you. So reach out, and we'll have more coming for you in 2021.
Thanks, everybody. See you soon.
Thanks for listening to Sales Training for Podcasters. To get additional information and to access more amazing content that will boost your sales game, visit salestrainingforpodcasters.com. Hey, do us a favor. Rate and review our show on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. Again, thanks for listening.